Hey YouTube, this is a video showing shortened bolt spring in my HDP 50. It will show you gains on HPA. The video evidence doesn't lie. With the factory spring and the bolt guide, this was shooting 268 with an 8.35 gram ball at 800 psi. Tossed in the shorter, lighter bolt spring, which I purchased from AliExpress. I'll put the link down here. Showed a very impressive gain of 18 feet per second. And that's a lot when you're shooting a little 18 feet per second with an 8.35 gram ball. So that is a pretty good gain. Gains are there on CO2 as well. When I injected the CO2 from outside the cylinder, if you watch this whole video, it's just a dirty mashup of little clips kind of throughout my testing that I did. I didn't add a lot of numbers in, a bunch of jargon. Very simple modification. If you can open this up, you just toss the spring in and away you go. One thing to note though, this is a 40 millimeter spring I'm running in here. I'm going to try a 45, so you know, if you want to wait for that testing, or these springs are cheap, have at it yourself, by all means. That's it. Let's go. Okay, so I just want to show you guys, this is the factory bolt stop for the HDP 50 and the factory spring. This is what I mean by this is a stop and a guide, but the spring is also a stop in a sense, because I gotta kind of get over here. This spring, when the bolt's fired and it's in its fully open position, you can see. Ooh, I knew that was gonna happen. You can see there. Let me do that again, more carefully this time. You can see the spring does completely compress inside this guide. So this is the 40 millimeter spring that I'm using to replace this. Now, when I mic this spring, I mic it at like 1.3 mils. The two closest options that I had was 1.2, which is this. That's what this is. This is a 1.2 by 40 millimeter. And the next one, I couldn't get a 1.3. Otherwise, I think I would have got a 1.3, but in a shorter version of this. But the next size is 1.5, which, at least in the T4E line, in the HDP 50, because that's all I'm testing on right now, going heavier had the opposite effect you would think it would. That some of the larger caliber markers that I deal with, like the M17 and FSC, where they benefit from it. This makes me rethink some of those things. So definitely need to be doing some more testing on my other markers. Thank God it's a new year. Here it is, assembled with the shortened bolt guide, bolt guide / stop. Another limiting factor though is also the spring, and I can't recall if I have to change that, but I'm gonna run the stock spring with my shortened bolt guide first with the tuning barrel, because I've already got that licked. Okay, so here's the test fire. I put the tuning barrel back in, shortened bolt guide, but I just left the factory spring in. And the factory spring is going to be a limiting factor here, because when it's fully compressed, it still acts as a stop. And my tabletop kind of messing around there. When I compressed that spring inside the bolt guide, they were almost an exact match. So that tells me, even though I've shortened the bolt guide, the spring is still gonna actually stop it where the original bolt guide was. So let's just test fire at 800 PSI, 8.35 gram steel ball bearings, 12.7 millimeter. Air it up. Last video with just the regular stop and the spring, it was I think it was shooting 268. $252. Ooh, $242. $248. $250. $254. $250. And that's it, it's out. I can tell you already, obviously it's down on FPS. Because I shortened the bolt guide but left the spring long and the bolt is still stopping at its factory point, I've exposed a lot of the stem of the bolt, I can call it the stem of the bolt. So normally that bolt is jammed right into that bolt guide, but because it's stopping short, probably about 3/8 of an inch short, so air I can feel is actually escaping out the back. So what I need to do next is the short bolt spring. Now, I've gone through these motions already, but something tells me I'm a little bit smarter this time around, so we'll go try that. All right, so here is the lighter bolt spring with the factory bolt guide, so the unmodified, unshortened bolt guide. See if it has the same power. Damn, it was actually higher. Let's try that again, guys. Remember, I'm just loading these one at a time because I don't have my follower on there. So my tank, this is an 800 PSI tank, just to refresh your memory, and I'm just over 2,000 PSI. Holy fart. Well, there's the other half of my follower I was looking for the other day. One more. Fuck, I haven't seen my Umarex that consistent, even on HPA. You know, it always gets that, you see it, you get a spike and a low and a spike and a low. 3 shots in a row at the same feet per second. I'm gonna throw the extension on this and let's see what it does. Okay, so here's with the extension on. This is not polished to match my tuning barrel, so the gain isn't going to be as much as it could be, but curious nonetheless. $338. You can see I wasn't as excited because, you know what, I'm not as familiar running the extension as I am. My goal all along was always just to keep the short barrel. So I didn't do as much testing with this on. So at the top of my head, it's higher, of course, but is it that much higher? I'm not sure. But let's do her again. still can't believe that, man. So consistent. All right, guys, well, might be time to share this with you. I should say, this spring I'm using, there might be one that's better. This is working, so I don't see a reason why to change it. But I'm going to anyways. But I gotta order those springs because originally when I ordered a bunch of bolt springs for these Umarex, I went with mostly heavier springs, and I did have one light spring that I'm using in here, and I thought it was too short, which is the reason why I never ran it. And you know, up until a couple of days ago when got back on these while I'm waiting for my M17, which has now arrived, I thought, hell, I'm gonna throw it in there. Tank is off now, so I just want to see what the last one does. 332. Obviously down a little because there's nothing left. But still shooting hard. 1500 PSI, 1600 PSI left. And I know somebody's gonna ask, what does it do on CO2? And that's a good question. So let's try it. 12 gram Crossman CO2. Charged, same 8.35 gram ball, same factory unmodified bolt guide, stop, but shorter, lighter bolt spring. 286 was on 800 HPA, so maybe more, maybe less. Meh. Less? I was kind of hoping for better than that. Oh yeah, I don't have a ball on there. You know what? Let's just see what it does with the longer extension, because we all know CO2 likes more compression space. So 252 was the short tuning barrel. Not terribly impressive. I think there's probably some guys out there hitting that number. .288. Yeah, so CO2, I mean, it never really was impressive on these. The HPA always made them shine, and I definitely was expecting I would see more. But nevertheless, I'm happy on the HPA because actually with the factory bolt spring and the factory guide, I previously in my video there, I think it tests at 268. And it was fairly consistent, 268, 264, 259, and it went up to 264 again, I think. So the bolt spring did do something because it hit 286 3 times in a row. Again, those CO2 is a little disappointing because I know lots of you guys out there want to run CO2, as do I. But we'll just keep on plugging away. After sitting on the CO2 results for a minute, I realized something. The 12 gram is taking up space in the cylinder here, so it's at a disadvantage to the HBA that I was putting in the bottom. So as you can see here, I'm gonna retest. Sorry. With the 12 gram outside the CO2 chamber, much like how the HBA was, and we'll see if it gets similar results. So air it up. Oh, much better results. We already knew that. I mean, when doing these, converting these to HBA, I mean, we're using that chamber, sorry, that CO2 space as air chamber space. So it was only natural that adding the CO2 outside the chamber would increase. Still not as good as the 800 PSI HBA. I was 286. Obviously, next up, I'm putting my adapter in the back of this, and we'll do some more testing. $62, obviously it's 12 grams, so you know, power is limited, especially when you're using that extra space. Yeah, it fell pretty fast. That's a lot to ask of a 12 gram. But still means my bolt spring's working. I just thought I'd show you guys this 12 gram adapter. Look at the size of the hole this thing puts in there. That may play a part in how quickly the power drops off, but yeah, that's pretty massive. Same test with an 88 gram CO2. Now this has been sitting in my garage for quite some time now, a couple of months, unused, with the adapter, with this pepper ball adapter pierced. Currently, it says just over 700 PSI. I don't know what that translates, because once you start firing these, it'll fluctuate a little bit. So, but let's see what it does. 276 was a hot shot on the 12 gram. No change really. We'll stop it there. Got to save that 88 gram for some other stuff. So here is the 1.2 40 mil spring installed. Now I think I can get away with going, I'd probably feel better about a 45 millimeter spring, but I don't have one here, and this one is working, but I think I'm gonna try the next size up, and we'll report back.